The girl in the black dress stood a half step away from the man at the motel counter, close enough to be seen with him, far enough to show she did not belong to him. Her arms folded tight across her chest. Her eyes kept moving, scanning the lobby, the door, the clerk, the corners. To anyone passing by, it looked like a couple checking in for the night. But the distance between them told the real story. The man controlled the space like it was his right. When she didn't stand where he wanted, he ordered her closer. She obeyed fast, the way people do when they already know what happens if they don't. As she shifted, she turned her face away and wiped at a tear behind his back, trying to hide it like it could keep her safe. His name was Edwin Lara. He wanted the world to think he was law enforcement. He dressed like it. He acted like it. He carried himself like it. But he was not there to protect her. He was there because he had already crossed a line he could never uncross. And the only person in that lobby who would eventually stop him was the hostage he thought he owned. Her name was Aundreah Maes. She was 19 years old. The day before Aundreah was kidnapped, another young woman had already vanished. Kaylee Sawyer was 23. She lived in Bend, Oregon and worked as a dental assistant. She disappeared after a weekend night near Central Oregon Community College. By the next day, messages started flooding her phone and the phones of the people who loved her most. Her boyfriend, Cameron, kept reaching out, asking if anyone had seen her, asking if anyone had heard from her. Her mother, Julie Van Cleve, tried calling again and again. Sometimes the call went straight to voicemail. Other times it rang. And nobody answered. That detail mattered. A phone that goes straight to voicemail can mean it's turned off. A phone that rings can mean it's powered on. It can mean someone is there letting it ring, choosing silence. It can mean the missing person is alive and hiding. Or it can mean someone else has the phone. By July 24, 2016, the fear had a shape. Julie and Cameron contacted law enforcement, and the search for Kaylee began with almost nothing solid to hold on to. Then the next day, the case cracked open in a way no one expected. A rookie officer named Isabel Ponce rushed into her local station with information she could not keep inside her anymore. She had confronted her husband. His name was Edwin Lara. He was 34 years old and training for a law enforcement career. She revealed that Kaylee's belongings had been hidden in their shed. Edwin had taken Isabel's service weapon. He had taken her car. The moment that report landed, the search shifted. Edwin was no longer a vague possibility. He was a target. A manhunt launched, but Edwin had already left. From Redmond, Oregon, he drove in a straight line towards Salem. By evening, he was already there. And in Salem, while the city moved through another hot summer day without knowing a killer had arrived, Aundreah Maes sat in her car after work. It had been a long shift. She was supposed to leave earlier, but she stayed to cover someone else's hours. The day dragged. The heat pressed down close to 90 degrees. When she finally got back to her car, she tried to breathe again. She opened the driver's side window and scrolled on her phone, letting the air move. That small choice was enough. A figure appeared at the open window with a gun. The barrel came through the space like it belonged there. Before she could process what she was seeing, the door unlocked. The man slid into the driver's seat fast, moving with practiced urgency. He pointed the weapon at her and took control of her body with the simplest command: "Don't move." He handcuffed her. He forced her to climb into the passenger seat. And then, as if this were just a conversation between strangers, he started talking. He asked questions about who she was, her siblings, her life, her routine. He wanted to map her out, to shrink her into details he could own. Aundreah refused. She kept saying she didn't want to answer. He got angry. He pressed the gun against her thigh and told her he would shoot her. He said it like it was a fact he could choose at any moment. Aundreah believed him. In her mind, she started rehearsing the ending. She pictured her body left in a ditch. She pictured being found dead in a motel room. That certainty did something strange inside her. Instead of collapsing, something in her snapped into place. She got mad. When she felt herself sliding toward panic, she would lash back with words. She would push against him in small ways. Like anger was the only thing she had left that still belonged to her. Edwin drove for hours. The distance turned the kidnapping into a moving cage, the handcuffs cutting into her wrists as the world outside the windows blurred into highway and sky. Eventually, he pulled off near an interstate and stopped at a rundown motel. Inside the lobby, cameras caught the scene that would later expose everything. Edwin booked the room like a normal customer. Aundreah stood beside him like she had a choice. She wiped away tears when she thought no one could see. Then the door closed behind them. Inside the room, Edwin ordered her to strip and take a shower in front of him. He watched her like he expected obedience, like her fear was proof of his power. Aundreah refused. In her head, the line was clear. She would rather die than give him that. She told him she didn't care what he did to her. She told him that would be worse than dying. Edwin's frustration turned physical. He pushed her onto the bed. Then he forced her to take a sleeping pill. Outside that motel room, hours away, the search for Kaylee Sawyer continued with the desperate hope that she might still be alive. Even with bloodied clothing found in Edwin's shed, the case clung to uncertainty because there was no body yet. There was still a thin thread of possibility. Kaylee's family held onto that thread until it started cutting into their hands. Her mother remembered the daughter who wanted to be described as smart, strong, and funny. Her grandparents thought about the future that had been so close, the wedding that had been talked about like it was already real. Her best friend Naomi remembered how Kaylee wanted to be everything, how she could not settle on one dream because life felt too big to choose only one. While they waited, Aundreah fought for minutes inside a motel room with a man who had already proven he could kill. Then something happened that changed everything. Aundreah's phone rang. It was a small sound, a vibration and a tone, but it hit Edwin like a threat. His eyes went to the screen. His body tensed. For a moment, he looked less like a predator and more like an animal hearing a noise in the dark. Aundreah reacted fast. She lied. She said it was a timer. She said she had to take medicine. When he demanded to know why, she told him she had an STD. It was not true, but it landed exactly where she needed it to. Edwin jumped up pacing. The threat he imagined was no longer just law enforcement. Now it was something he didn't want touching him. He grabbed his phone and made a call, spiraling deeper into paranoia. He became convinced police helicopters were outside, even though the night was quiet. Aundreah pleaded to be let go. Edwin didn't soften. The tension in him sharpened into movement. Before sunrise, he dragged her out of the room and into the open air. A man named Jack Levi was in the parking lot, preparing for his day. He planned to photograph butterflies at a nearby national park. Around 5:00 a.m., he loaded gear into his truck, thinking about light and lenses, not violence. Edwin and Aundreah appeared like a nightmare stepping into daylight. Aundreah was still in handcuffs. Edwin demanded Jack's keys. Jack resisted for a fraction of a moment, the way a person does when the brain still believes this cannot be real. The gun fired. Aundreah watched the shot land. The sound cracked through the morning. In that instant, Edwin became something beyond a kidnapper. He became a man who would shoot a stranger in front of her without hesitation. Edwin grabbed Aundreah and ran. They crossed toward a gas station. The world around them still looked normal. Roads, cars, people beginning their day. But for Aundreah, everything had changed. She had seen how easily Edwin could pull the trigger. At the gas station, Edwin spotted a car with the passenger door open. Inside was a family. 17-year-old Nima behind the wheel, his 14-year-old brother and their grandmother, who did not speak English. Edwin moved fast. He shoved Aundreah into the vehicle and slammed the door. He pointed the gun at Nima's head and ordered him to drive. Now it wasn't just Aundreah. Now it was all of them. The car pulled back onto the road and Edwin's violence expanded to fill the space. The grandmother began screaming, not understanding the words, only understanding the weapon, the fear in her grandson's faces, the sudden collapse of safety. Edwin barked orders. He grabbed the family's phones one by one. He handed them to Aundreah and forced her to throw them out the window. Aundreah obeyed, but she made a choice inside the obedience. She threw the phones hard into the grass instead of onto the pavement, trying to keep them from shattering. If they survived, they could become breadcrumbs. A signal, a trace. Nima begged Edwin to let them go. Edwin listened, and then in a strange twist, he agreed. He stopped along the road and told Nima, his brother, and their grandmother to get out. He kept the car, and he kept Aundreah. The others stepped away, freed but stunned, their lives split into before and after. Edwin took the driver's seat again. Sirens began to echo somewhere behind them. The chase was catching up. He took Aundreah's phone and started recording himself, using the screen like a stage. Then he handed it back to her and forced her to post the video online. He threatened to kill her if she didn't. Aundreah did what she had to do. She posted it. The message was meant to spread fear, to announce that a murderer was loose, to make Edwin feel powerful. But it also created a trail. When patrol cars finally closed in, Edwin's control became reckless. He sped up, weaving through traffic at around 120 miles per hour. He honked, swerved, surged between cars like the highway belonged to him, and everyone else was just an obstacle. The chase lasted about 15 minutes. Then Edwin slammed on the brakes and stopped. He handed the phone back to Aundreah, raised his hands, and stepped out of the car. For the first time since she had been taken, Aundreah was alone. She broke. The sobs came hard, the kind that don't ask permission. She tried to follow instructions on the phone, trying to make her body do what it was told while her mind was still trapped in the last hours. Even after Edwin had already stated she was innocent, a fatal miscommunication spread through the system. Aundreah was arrested. She was taken into custody alongside the man who had kidnapped her. She was treated like an accomplice, like a co-conspirator, like she had chosen any of it. While attention remained fixed on Kaylee's location, Aundreah was placed in a cell with the weight of false accusations crushing down on top of her trauma. Meanwhile, Edwin was questioned. He carried himself with arrogance, acting like a man who believed his name carried power. And then, with shocking ease, he revealed where Kaylee Sawyer was, an address along Highway 26 in Oregon. Officers and paramedics moved quickly. Within minutes, they found her. Kaylee had clung to life as long as she could, but they were too late. Her body was recovered, and her family was told the truth they had been forced to circle for days. When they asked to see her, they were warned not to. She was unrecognizable. The last goodbye came through a black body bag. Back in California, Aundreah remained locked up. The damage from the miscommunication widened. Her name was pushed into the public as if she had helped Edwin, as if she had shared the road with him by choice. The story built around her was false, but it spread anyway, and the mistakes did not stop there. After his arrest, Edwin attempted to assert his legal rights. He was ignored, the pressure continued. The early statements he gave were later thrown away, and the confession that could have sealed everything was dismissed. Without it, the case had to be rebuilt from the ground up. The truth of what happened to Kaylee became clear through the pieces that remained. After a fight with her boyfriend late at night, Kaylee walked alone near the community college. Edwin worked there as a campus security guard. The uniform and vehicle he used were close enough to law enforcement that a stranger could be fooled in a moment of stress. Edwin saw Kaylee and offered her a ride. She refused. He stepped out and ordered her to stop, using authority like a weapon. Kaylee realized something was wrong and tried to run. Edwin grabbed her and forced her into his vehicle. The car was not just styled like a police cruiser. It had features that made escape almost impossible, including a caged back seat. Kaylee was trapped. At some point, she became unconscious. Edwin drove her to a secluded area, a parking lot far from help. When Kaylee regained awareness, she fought. She tried to crawl through the barrier. She reached for the emergency lights, the radio, the horn, anything that could pull attention toward the truth. It wasn't enough. Edwin assaulted her while she was dying. Then he dragged her behind a tree and used a heavy rock, weighing around 60 to 70 pounds, to finish the killing. The horror of the details pushed the case toward the most severe penalty available, but because of what happened after his arrest, the path toward that outcome shifted. A deal formed in the shadow of appeals and time. If the death penalty was taken off the table, Edwin would plead guilty and accept a sentence of life without parole. Kaylee's mother, Julie, was told what the years would look like otherwise. Hearing after hearing, appeal after appeal, a life spent waiting for the next date on a calendar. She understood that a death sentence could keep him alive in the system for decades, while her family would be pulled back into the case again and again, never allowed to fully step away. The plea was accepted. Edwin Lara pleaded guilty and received life without parole. Aundreah was eventually released, and every charge against her was dropped. But the stain of being labeled an accomplice did not vanish overnight. No public apology arrived to erase the days she spent behind bars after surviving a kidnapping. When court proceedings continued over the next years, the trauma stayed alive in Aundreah's body. The idea of speaking, of facing Edwin again, was heavy enough to steal breath. During that same stretch of time, Kaylee's family chose a different kind of fight. They sued the college for allowing Edwin to work there without a background check or a psychological evaluation, and for giving untrained security personnel equipment and vehicles that could be mistaken for law enforcement. They won. The case helped create Kaylee's Law, a rule meant to stop campuses from using police-grade gear in ways that blur the line between security and law enforcement. Lives moved forward in broken ways. Nima and his family carried what happened to them and tried to return to ordinary life. Jack Levy survived the gunshot and lived with the memory of the morning he stepped outside to photograph butterflies and was nearly killed instead. Kaylee's mother learned how grief changes shape over time. Some days it was unbearable. Some days it softened into a quiet pain that sat beside her. She held on to the love that did not end when Kaylee did. On the final day of court hearings, Aundreah stood in the same space as Edwin again. This time, she spoke. She had been painted as weak. She had been treated as if she was part of the violence instead of its target. She had lived through handcuffs, threats, humiliation, and fear. She had watched a stranger get shot. She had been forced into a car with a gun at someone else's head. She had been ordered to throw phones out the window. She had been driven at deadly speeds. She had been arrested after surviving. Still, she was standing. She faced Edwin with the truth of what she had done. She had survived him. She had outlasted his control. She had carried the story when no one else could. In the end, Edwin Lara went to prison for the rest of his life. Kaylee Sawyer was gone. Her future stolen in the dark by a man pretending to be a protector. And Aundreah Maes walked out of the courthouse alive, no longer a hostage, no longer a suspect, no longer the frightened girl in the black dress at the motel counter. She walked out as the person who defeated him.